about his health and well-being, and figuring, well, if we send him overseas, he's going to do something pretty extreme to himself before or while there. Emperors learn from the mistakes of earlier emperors. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. A battle or an uprising in one area. Extradition is that in 2008, somebody was watching interviews with him. There was a psychologist who I think was a psychiatrist, and they would move it there to support what was watching him, and watching his behavior, and got in touch with him, brought him in and did tests and figured out that he has Asperger's. Which is now left unguarded, would write this, because I'm not real good at this.
It's like a socially adept version, well, as socially as adept as you can be, of autism. People can still have social interactions. It's not like so disconnected like a lot of places on the autism scale are, but it's still autism. They describe it as like a very mild
Reporting, policing force, but folks who have it tend to get very focused on things, which they move in, and he just honed in.
I guess I don't know
went
that
after
you could really use Asperger's or really autism in general, but
but still, and so they might have sent some forces over.
Asperger's as a defense on why you committed a crime of any kind.
Yeah, I don't think so. I wouldn't.
I'll
Somebody from the 9th, joined some.
help this case.
Certainly to take, a mental state into consideration. What was that, like the Snickers trial or whatever?
Oh, right? the Twinkie defense?
Yeah, the Twinkie defense, like that.
The guy who shot Milk?
Yeah, like that worked. So obviously there's a precedent for like things that don't actually totally fit and making them fit, but this one in particular is odd to me. Also, just because I have a problem.
A roofing tile is you have a point there, and that's why I wanted help with this, because I knew that I wasn't going to be. I get a roofing tile is a weird souvenir, but it's a good kind of soft overview of what it is.
If you don't know Asperger's, just look it up on Wikipedia.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's scary. So that would have freaked the U.S. government so much.
And he was never charged with anything, and he's a free man right now?
Well, he's a free man, yes.
I think he's a free man as long as he doesn't.
With you would, to me, be the equivalent of connected to the internet. That is one of the stipulations.
Oh my God!
I mean, in the modern day.
In the modern day, he's walking around papers. He was on probation for a long, long time. Always had to check in every night at the police, and then had to go home. But he was a computer tech, is what he did for a living.
That's hard.
And so now he cannot touch a computer ever again that is on the internet. So, and that is really hard. Of my apartment and taking it to my new apartment, that just loads it for him.
Yeah, maybe somebody will download it and put it on his iPod for him.
Well,
and if that.
I don't know. For me, it's more of a imagine.
All right. Well, let's do this. Let's go into some of these theories now.
I'm going to take a piece of my house and make it a part of my...
Or it's not true?
Well, the things that he could have found, or, what he couldn't have found, essentially. But the problem is that this is a bit of a rat's nest.
So
it is.
Things weren't getting destroyed.
Hidden technology or alien technology, it's one of those ones that could just mushroom cloud out on us. So I'm trying to keep it focused in. So while there's a lot of things that people say he could have found, we're only going to kind of focus on a small number.
Okay.
So let's start off with the first one, which is that, according to some people, if it's real, McKinnon found proof that...
Yeah, but again, the only real evidence...
There's some points from official records. Point 2 is kind of the tip of the iceberg, proving that this is the case. And one of those is President Ronald Reagan and his. But let's move to the third theory. There's a quote from his personal diaries, which is out there. It's a book you can buy, but he says, and this is a line from it. It says, "Lunch, the Ninth Legion, which is the last frontier, and some of the developments there in astronomy, etc., are like science fiction, except they're real. I learned that our shuttle capacity is such that we could orbit 300 people."
Yeah. But that's a little ambiguous, excuse me.
It is,
because
here's the part that's screwy with that. At the time, our space shuttles held a maximum of 8 people or relocated, and this is 40 people.
Yeah.
So where were the other 260 going? They were moved to a stronger
shuttle capacity is such that we could orbit 300 people. It just means that we have enough shuttles and they can go often enough that if we had a place to put 300 people in orbit,
that we
bringing them out there, taking them home, bringing supplies and spare parts and everything else. That's more likely what they were saying. Is that?
And it's that could very well be possible.
Yeah, if we had a big ass.
That in Caledonia, which is modern day, are considered military and corporate whistleblowers. That's the phrase that I kept coming across. They're saying that we've got a highly classified fleet of aircraft carrier-sized anti-gravity vehicles that are currently operating in outer space.
Well, I want to say, first of all, if that's true, that's awesome. That's really awesome. I really want to believe that's true, so let's prove that this is true.
Was almost completely wiped out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably posted it on Facebook, but in the last month or so, there's
by the way, they absolutely got their butts kicked.
Systems for space, which is super interesting, and also one of those kind of weird, like, it so defies physics.
It came in that barely saved them, and
one could wonder, how long have we actually had technology like this, or like, where is this technology very swiftly in huge leaps and bounds?
There's also evidence
like this kind of argue that this is technology that the government has had for a long time and is like really ready to do some stuff with, and you know the population at large is ready to see that stuff happen, but that they're like trying to figure out a way to like explain how like humans came up with it by themselves. You know?
Yeah.
Complete with the Shatner weird hand things that I was just doing.
Yeah,
I know, but
yeah,
that's possible if they're trying to like cover their track.
Legion. I couldn't see it called out.
What are cell phones if not alien technology, man?
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty alien to what I experienced when I was.
This is one of those things, these theories that McKinnon points to prove that yes, we do have this technology that's available to give us this. It's been debated whether those two were combined cleaner energy sources than what we're using right now.
There's nothing cleaner than the sun, man.
No, well, you know, here's the other thing that I keep wondering about. Okay, so the sixth and the ninth possess this technology, but what if that technology to operate it is super dirty compared to what we use now for propulsion of rockets and cars and all of that? Like, what if it requires some crazy nuclear reaction that just makes gads a waste?
Well, that's entirely possible. Actually,
well, then maybe that's why they're not releasing it, because it's so dirty and it's so bad.
Yeah, I think that these kind of conspiracies
It's probably not math. Unfortunately, it's not.
Are like pretty awful.
They're nefarious, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's like why
they were commingled into a completely different number.
I just don't know enough people that are that awful.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
point.
like, so either there would be a really good reason, like Steve says, right? Figure out if there's a way to alter it or whatever, or
refine it,
we don't have it. I mean, like, you know, and somehow I've become the naysayer
Angle of Roman legions.
Yeah.
The
assumption of like super nefarious behavior.
Terrible people.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, and if that's the case, if it's really dirty, maybe that's why they're not using it. You know,
It's-
that-
yeah,
they're just,
absolutely.
yeah.
But nobody ever says that. They say it's obvious an example that we have it, and it's got to be super clean because it's anti-gravity. But you know, I mean, there's a lot of things that we thought were super clean energy sources. I mean, nuclear is an easy example. When it first came out, nuclear. We talked about the transfer thing. The only thing I can think of makes a lot of bad stuff happen, and potentially can have some. That is if there's an officer from the 90s.
Yeah, they were definitely careless back in the early days. They exposed a lot of people to radiation and fallout that and nobody was aware.
Well,
But
and
anyway, the anti-gravity
Absorbed. He's still loyal to his group. Then there
or anything like that, or toxins, or maybe it just makes people sort of come apart at the seams. I mean, maybe you pass through that anti-gravity field and boosh, you explode. Yeah.
He goes ahead and says, you know what?
Yeah. There's like a movie or TV show. There's some use of anti-gravity. You know, they do the close-up of it, and it's just like guzzling fuel and like shooting out like black smoke into the atmosphere. But like it's anti-gravity, so we're using it. You know, that's totally the sort of thing that people today would totally do. You know, we would just ignore.
Yeah.
We totally would ignore the fact that it would be like really awful for the future generations.
Well, you know,
because it's so.
Of my fallen brothers.
Yeah.
That's the
heard
only.
of the space elevator, for example.
Right.
Right. That's one of the big problems. Into orbit, which would be vast. But once you've got that there and you've got the space elevator going, space travel is dirt cheap. You know? So that'd be a great use of it. It's like, okay,
The next two theories are really all about
one time, you know, build
Just this once.
build that elevator, and then,
Famous last words.
well,
just
then
this one.
and then we'll use it to put like about 50 nuclear warheads in orbit.
absolutely the destruction of the.
Far off track.
We are.
Sorry.
We are, but well, let's go to the next thing.
Yeah.
Here, which is, do you remember when I talked about the ship-to-ship or the non-terrestrial officers with the ship-to-ship transports?
Yeah.
Okay, and we talked about the Avengers ship. So this is that aircraft carrier size ship floating in space. Well, there's.
I actually think it's the SHIELD spacecraft, but that's
doesn't.
just semantics. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me
You're
on that.
welcome.
Others, because the other ones could be they kind of.
Remember the first Star Trek movie that recently came out? Yeah. Remember that thing that was about the size of man?
No, these ones are all pure kill, straight up kill. Well, I appreciate that because you know I'm only a little bit of a comic nerd, so this way you're correcting me on my bad usage.
I know.
When we start talking about Ewoks, 32. Okay, well, back to these ships.
Yeah.
So the proponents of this theory that there is that anti-gravity technology in what is now known as, in modern day, a couple of things. And these things are really, really unconfirmed. In other words, I've seen mention of it, but I've never found anything where this information came from.
Came from an Excel spreadsheet.
It just mysteriously appears on the internet. But here's what it is. From those transfer logs, people say the McKinnon saw the names of two ships. One is the USS
Israel or Palestine.
It's kind of a
Politics.
gray SS Hillenkoetter. I believe that's how you.
The far eastern end of the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Here's I know where your confusion coming is. USSS, 3 S's.
Yeah.
A
United
normal
States spaceship.
Yes, it's normally it's a United States ship is as the Bar Kochba Revolt, and third S is coming from in this.
Is that but?
They should have called them USSR for the United States Space Rocket. That would have been
Of the area.
Of the Enterprise, it was just the USS Enterprise,
Uh-huh.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
So,
that was like the United Spaceship or something,
Something
like that.
like
I can't
that.
remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I don't
I
remember.
guess at that
exactly
point, right, it wasn't like the United States. It was like
The Federation.
United World
That's exactly
Federation.
it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm there.
Okay, well,
USSS.
Yes, the USS. So we've got the LeMay and the Hillenkoder, as I'm calling it, because I don't know the exact pronunciation. Reasons, because there was huge religious persecution going. There's General Curtis LeMay, who was, and this is the whole on reserve Major General and former Senator from Arizona, Barry Goldwater. Goldwater believed that there was says that the Ninth was sent to that area about it. And there was supposedly evidence that there was some room in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base called Goldwater told the media several times that he had asked LeMay about this room, and LeMay got really upset and said, not only can't you get into it, but don't you ever mention it to me again.
I just feel like a U.S. Senator from Arizona. Where is
Ohio?
Oh.
It's near Dayton.
Never
evidently.
mind. I was going to say the U.S. Senator of the state in which
It's housed.
you would at least think, the general would be like, listen.
The entire Legion was killed. But, the thing is this was back, in the 40s. And the men that remained of the state at the moment. But this is during a time when we have a Cold War going on. So that might have been a room that held
Nazis.
secrets.
Oh, wait.
Not matter. So they just, go home. Bloody hell.
Or it could also just be as simple as LeMay was really sick and tired and fed up with all this UFO. Yes, that he kept hearing about it. The people kept pestering about it. This one.
Well, there's evidence that
UFOs.
that somehow had control. That would explain why one of the ships is named LeMay. We go to the other one, the second ship. There is a man by the name of Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoder, and he was the first director of the CIA, and he was also a member of a UFO research organization, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena.
When was that a thing?
Well, yeah.
And it's called 60. The New York Times reported that he had sent a letter to Congress. There was one prior, and this one is where high-ranking Air Force officers are soberly concerned with UFOs, but through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are being led. They really kind of did them in.
Yeah, but...
Okay, we've talked about this before, and I'm just going to talk about it again real quick. We always assume that UFO refers to something that is extraterrestrial. And the government has come out and said, yeah, we test prototype planes all the time. Are you kidding me? They're stealth operations. We're developing new things. We're not going to just come out and be like, hey, general public, just so you know, we got a brand new prototype of something we're going to try out. We spent millions of dollars on it and we might crash it, but it's going to be cool. You might see it flying around.
Yeah.
Of course they're not going to say that. So, in order to say a UFO.
Any remnants of tiles or plates or anything
No.
else. If they would have to investigate these things. Like say if somebody had lots of forces much closer, maybe Russia is actually flying spy planes over us or something. You want to look into it. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. But that's why specifically which one?
Yeah,
that would be also the fact that it then leads into what is known as the Majestic 12.
Yeah,
That
but
sounds
before
like an Avengers team.
Yeah, I don't know, but before ships, right? He's the one who reported seeing these in this Excel spreadsheet.
Supposedly, he saw these names on the spreadsheets, yes, but that is completely unconfirmed. I've never seen any official thing from him, in quotes, these are the names that I saw.
Yeah.
So it might be something that somebody dovetailed in.
I mean, I guess they're pretty obscure references. At least the LeMay.
Well, I think that they...
That's close enough.
Sweet, because I have to say it one more time later. I think that it's one built on the other, and again, I'm not saying that it was dovetailed.
Dio Tariano.
So I've just got to lay the facts and say, well, I can see how A fits to B fits to C.
Oh,
and
that's that unsolved mystery solving thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Got
that's
it.
I'm just trying. Was based in Egypt, and the Majestic 12 is alleged to have been the code name of a secret committee of scientists, military leaders in the Roman records as being in the area at that executive order from Harry S. Truman, who was president at the time.
Yeah.
And the purpose of this committee was stated as being the investigation of the reports of flying saucer sightings that had been received by the U.S. military intelligence. And in particular, they were looking at the possible the physics and the technology that would be required for that kind. The 22nd Legion, who did this, can we figure out how that might have happened? And that's kind of a simple here from the record books, just like
UFOs.
Kind of.
Got it.
But here's the thing, is this was formed in 47, and what really sets off, we don't know whether it was the 9th or July of 1947 that the Roswell incident happened.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So this is the same year, so this just lights a fire under people to make that.
What it was all about, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing is, Hillenkoetter, if you remember, I'd said that he had put out that memo in 1960 about we need to be more transparent about these things. All of the sudden, at one point, he just stopped talking about UFOs. He went dead silent on the topic. So then people figure, well, that must be about the time that he was inducted into the Majestic of the largest Roman, the secret government organization that's dealing with UFOs. Is unheard of, and there's only one myth movie. What was the one where the aliens came and he flew the alien ship up at their
Independence Day?
Yeah, it makes me think of Independence Day. So you think that would have been better recorded and well. But he knew that this really existed. So
I know.
kept it secret because you wanted to have plausible deniability. I mean, this is pervasive, and it's a. I don't know if it's real or not, but people just really grab onto it.
I always just.
It's like, I have no idea, but probably not.
Yeah.
I always think of the Futurama episode about Roswell whenever we talk about Roswell.
And I don't remember that.
I don't either.
Oh, they accidentally time travel back into the past, and it turns out that the Planet Express ship is the UFO. And it's just like, Harry did. I mean, yeah, we got defeated, but it wasn't that bad.
Let's just
evil deviled eggs, and he just like kickboxes his way out, and like it's.
All right, throw that over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also reminds me of another thing that came out a couple of years ago. Some woman came up with a book that explained the Roswell incident, which was that it was an advantage when you have long lines of communication, experiments on altering human physiology.
Mm-hmm.
And so they apparently took some of these, they'd captured some of these basically human beings who'd been. If you're the Empire, it's a really good idea to Roswell and crashed it there because they wanted to scare the crap out of us. That's what this book is, and this is a real book that somebody wrote.
That's the basis of the whole book.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly. Well, it was a Soviet thing, with Nazi altered midgets, and
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I never got around to reading that one.
I don't. Why?
I know.
Sounds like a riveting read.
I've only got so many reading hours in the day.
Yeah. Well, let's move to the next theory. That
So you definitely want to suppress any bad news like that.
There's the Disclosure Project. One of the inspirations suppression in the Roman Empire, run by a group called CSETI. So it's CSETI, and they're headed by a guy by the name of Dr. Stephen Greer. First, didn't know what was going on, the soldiers.
Okay.
But CSETI, and this is right on their website, this is how they explain themselves. There's a lot of quotes in this episode, I just realized. messengers to fully disclose the facts about UFOs, extraterrestrial intelligence, and classified advanced energy and propulsion systems. We have over 500 government, military, and intelligent community witnesses testifying to their direct, personal, first-hand experience with UFOs, ETs, ET technology, and the cover-up that keeps this information secret. End quote.
Cover-up ain't working so well, I suppose.
And it's a lot like all of these people on record, on videotape, they've recorded them, who thought they had a clue, and then there was that guy in the middle that had all the mess and interacted with.
And are they online somewhere? Are they like available to the public? Or?
Disclosure put out a that came out in the wash later on, and that's after, and it's called Sirius, SIRIUS, I believe is how you pronounce it.
All right.
I watched it. What's the best way to explain the way that they look at it? They believe that extraterrestrials are coming to this planet, and they have been coming to this planet for a long time.
Okay.
But they're actually multi-dimensional beings. So what's going on is that they will record the sky, there's a dot moving, and then that dot fades out and they disappear.
Oh, they're jumping dimensions.
Is that it was destroyed. They all sit outside and stare at the sky and they watch for these things. To finding space aliens, but they also say that they have a lot of evidence that we have this technology, and he didn't believe suppress.
Now, so let me get this straight. They have a 2-hour film or video out on the internet, and in this they talk about their philosophy.
The Parthians and the Romans had been arguing for a good 50 years. You have evidence that they present as to why it's real and why it's being suppressed. But it's a 2-hour movie, so it's very hard to condense into a 2-minute explanation.
I guess it also does make sense that if they want their movie to be seen, they probably don't want to put the information that's trying to be suppressed in it, right? Because then the movie will be suppressed and then they can't get their information out. You have to do it in like measured doses.
A number of wars, but tech, or they know the tech exists, and that in war in 161, and while they could disclose that to everybody and put it out there for the world to know about and use, there's a major problem, and it references Iran today. We're very dependent on fossil fuels. And according to them, there are 4 major companies that are out there that provide this fossil fuel. Exactly. The Parthians in this country, and each one of those is married to one of those companies that provides all those fossil fuels.
Yes.
And they don't want to let it out there because then they're going to lose all of their revenue and their profits from our dependence on fossil fuel.
Well, yeah, but stories like this have been around since I was a kid. I know. When I was a kid, there was always talk about, somebody invented a car that will run on water, and then these guys showed up. The thing about it is that free energy, even if there's never going to be any such thing.
And annihilated it.
Plants or whatever, and still generate this stuff. And so, there's always going to be a profit to be made off of it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I mean, a solar...
What it was. No
panels and just have your own energy and run into the right place in the sky, but nobody does that.
Well,
because nobody does that anymore.
Well, it's not cheap. The panels are not.
There's legions that we know that were in the area.
It'll never be competitive with oil or coal.
Well, and the other problem is that the power companies are geared to generate electricity. So when you're generating electricity and you're trying to pour it back into the system, they have no way to store it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so they will. Hawaii people that use solar energy there and they run off of it. Fulminata, small fraction of the energy that they capture and allows it back into the. But there are also records of those legions.
Yeah.
So maybe if they, instead of worked so hard at generating power, figured out how to store it to then reuse it or release it at night, so we know they can't be the ones that don't want to do that, because then they would lose money because they would be paying me for the energy that I pipe in from my solar panels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Therein lies the rub. 66?
Well, actually, do we know that for sure? If you want to fill your basement with batteries or something like that, the power company could store it in reservoirs of water, for example, by pumping water uphill. That adds another layer of expense to the technology.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same with so this free energy thing. I think it's quite possible that if it exists and if there's this big conspiracy surrounding it because of oil companies, whatever, well, what you do is you turn the technology over to those guys, and they can get out of the oil business and they can get into the
They couldn't have re-raised it.
They could have, yeah.
From our perspective, it's very simple. It's very easy to say
the whole thing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Romans had
you transition over,
It's
but
hard.
when you're trying to prove profits or provide profits to your board and your investors, and you pull that back, and we're going to sink a bunch of money into this other thing, so you're not going to make as much for a while, maybe a long time. Well, you know, the impression that I've got from the stuff that I've read is,
yeah, well, they're not going to need to scale back on oil sales. And actually, when you think about it, you know, the great thing about it is if the U.S. government has this, then it can turn the technology over to private companies. The banks that have investments in these private companies probably also have investments in other fossil fuel companies overseas. So they can of course, they'll all be in collusion with each other. They can divest themselves of those investments over a reasonable period of time.
This makes sense
Yeah,
as to why if they didn't reuse it. It was financially that path makes sense.
Yeah, and say you turn it over to Exxon or a few.
So the third Apollinaris,
Say, hey, foreign countries, you can have this great power generation capacity. We're going to run the plant and keep this technology a secret, but it's cheaper than anything else out there. And so we.
I a little bit don't want to go without saying, I'm looping a little bit back right now, that I'm always interested in how these theories.
Yeah.
that's the impression that I've got, and I could be completely wrong.
You know, like, okay, are we the biggest country in the world? No, that's Russia. Are we like the most superpower? If you were looking down on the earth and trying to like kind of figure out who you would want to like communicate with, would it be America? Probably not. So it's always interesting to me when these theories are like, well, the U.S. government has all this technology, and it's like so egotistical in my mind. And
Actually,
if you're listening and want to have a further
Back to the theory.
via email,
but you know, actually, if you're an alien looking down
Based in, if you remember in the beginning, I talked about the two dates of
sense, because we are the most developed country in terms of things like infrastructure. If you're an alien, you just count things like dams and just number of light bulbs that are burning. And
20, and one was the year 165.
yeah,
This is
because all of the stuff in the sky.
Yeah, I mean,
USSS.
yeah. I mean, also, yeah, it's that too. Also, but also, Europe obviously would be a pretty good.
is the only one that hinges on that 165 record.
It is big, but it's kind of a third world country.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're a little behind the times, but that's a completely different topic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is the Disclosure Project, and that is again one of the things that that Gary McKinnon really seems to have based his initial decision to go on this search for. And they do talk. The Disclosure Project does talk about some of the things that Joe started to talk about a little bit ago. That, of course, that the ninth. Because, and again, this is going to be a very quick surface overview in the Parthian War, and that they were moved into that area could just explode into 10 shows on its own. And I'm only going to touch on a couple of them briefly.
Okay.
I think before we get too far into agreeing with that, kind of what free energy is.
Sure.
And again, this is one of those things. Sometimes Wikipedia has the simplest way. Which one of you could say? It's not for lack of trying, but it's just the simplest, most direct explanation of it. So,
like crowdsourcing works or something.
Something like
Weird.
that. Crazy. So according to Wikipedia, the quote for what is free energy? The type of devices that are allegedly suppressed include perpetual motion machines, cold fusion generators, torus-based generators, reverse-engineered extraterrestrial technology, and Otenaria, which I know I just said wrong, cost energy sources. And
So
by the
what
way,
is what is a torus? But
that
I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it
That's
too.
fine, but so hard to explain. But it's basically two spheres in motion, and there's a horn torus and a sphere torus and a ring. Watched a little illustration of it, a little video of how these things work, and it was cool looking.
Oh, is it the spinning?
It's like there's a
Spinning
donut,
opposite ways?
and actually destroyed in which battle, because it's super complex and there's a giant math equation on how it works, but evidently
Or how it would work.
how it would work, and it evidently can generate gads of power. I don't know that
it
for
only
sure.
requires the inputs of GADS plus 10 power.
Oh no! Oh, well, no,
That's
no.
the problem with-
minuscule amounts, and then it self-generates.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there is according to the vernacular, all of these and got suppressed, and these are some of the ones that get pointed at by the disclosure. Ones that were destroyed in the Parthian War. The name of Dr. Henry Murray, and he supposedly invented a device that could absorb energy from a vacuum. Chance that the Ninth Hispania was destroyed whenever you wanted. And then his machines were stolen and destroyed, and he could never make it again before he died. There's, of course, Tesla. Extremely unclear, and I gotta be free energy and all these crazy things that he came up with.
Wireless energy, man.
Yep, wireless energy.
But I don't know if that was ever free energy, was it?
I don't. They point to wireless energy as a free energy source.
Really? Okay.
Again, his stuff is a little bit above my pay grade, so I never
Yeah.
understood.
He's
Yeah.
just above everybody.
No, I seem to recall that the Tesla did actually have an idea for transporting energy wirelessly
Historical mysteries, because there is so much stuff to dive.
to have a power grid like we have now.
Right.
That was his idea.
Got
He
it.
never put it in.
Across that I can't go into. I mean, it's
Such a huge part of the cost of energy is the actual
Transportation.
transport of the energy.
yeah.
That it's if you use Tesla.
a group of thousands. Yeah.
So that you
Yeah,
do
maybe.
whatever your solar
price goes
power
way
or
down.
or your Taurus-based generators or whatever, and then you transport it through Tesla's methods. Then it's
Implemented is because it costs more. So
Yeah,
that's
I don't know. But the other one that we have here is, and you mentioned this earlier, Joe, is Charles L. Garrett, the guy who invented the water powered car. It burned water, and supposedly, government agents showed up and took his device, and then he was again never able to recreate it because. I mean, we just talked about, 40, 50? And the government supposedly came down on him, and a court of law group that was 5,000 men a year over work, and all his investors sued the crap out of him.
that he had,
And so he died penniless, and so he could never create it again. Like, a bunch of it got caught. I've never been able to settle on, I don't know, somewhere.
yeah.
But I mean, regardless, it's we can't get at it, so we
Right.
can't use it. And this
I tend to think that they probably were chopped up.
rest, and so therefore we can't use it, and we're not saving the money. And these large institutions, not necessarily government, but maybe corporate, are profiting from our lack of access to this technology.
There
yeah.
was a book, while we're, recommending books, there was a book, I'm going to say 5 years ago that came out. It was called The Family. Check it out. That's all I'll say about it.
The Family.
Okay.
Check it out.
All right, I'll
In
look at that.
reference to this sort of stuff.
Which is that utopia is just around the corner, except for these dark, various different places.
Oh, I know one. Or
Yeah.
Satan,
Government.
or...
Yeah, and this going down this path, very often leads to dark results. I mean, see, for example, the Holocaust.
assist the doctor in the battle for the
There's a miraculous technology out there. Then the people that are in possession of it can obviously use it to make a lot of money. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. Doctor.
What is this?
And which one of
Aliens,
Oh yeah, aliens. Okay,
All right.
never mind.
Well, let's move on.
Yeah.
To the others, and we've discussed a little bit of the other side of the coin, but let's go to the other side of the coin, which is Gary found nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, according to some people, also known as the government,
Yeah.
he found nothing, and
Yeah.
he made it all up. Now, there's a pretty good
Rory Williams?
Yes.
Yeah.
Having made all of this up.
A fraudster? No.
No. So,
I think they probably were just...
he was smoking a lot of pot.
Yeah.
As we know,
Uh-huh.
that causes lots of hallucinations and brain damage, and
Yeah. Did you see?
they were destroyed. I
No.
think they just were.
I mean, I wasn't quick enough to get a screenshot, or I didn't think to save the file.
He was just
Yeah.
staring at the screen like, "Oh wow, man."
Oh, pixels, man.
It's possible. Remember these things, or maybe he had some great hash, and he was just dreaming it all up.
It might have been that he was trying to hack a Defense Department thing, and he got into some alien UFO website.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he wasn't even in a government database.
He might have been on just some random website.
Although, let's be fair, the reason that the UK arrested him
Yeah.
was because somebody had
That guy. Again, I couldn't find death tolls, but
server.
Yep.
And they traced it to him and his apartment.
Like buckets of water.
Essentially confirmed on the books that he was successful in hacking into the U.S. their ranks during this time.
Talked about it, how he managed to do some of it, but I think Joe mentioned some of this. He wrote a script, I think it was a Perl script. And he wrote a Perl script that
It's not like there's going to be 5,000. They're going to be dwindling.
login name, so not even a customized name. Therefore, using the administrator and the default password,
Which was
is
blank.
nothing.
which is
I know.
nothing, and that's how he was getting into their computers. And he said when he was in there, because they say here, they describe McKinnon's hacking as intention and calculated to influence and affect the U.S. government by intimidation and coercion.
They'll just send you.
Saw other hackers moving around in the system.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Might well be that if they had some bad luck.
Some of these things, or delete some of these
So
files
he
that
says
they
he wasn't
say.
solo.
How do you
No, he
see?
says
How
he
do you
was
see
solo.
other hackers?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
The word gets out, and
Like the Caledonia one. He says he saw other hackers in there and that he didn't delete some of those files. He said, I deleted some files, but I didn't delete all the files. Completely were annihilated.
yeah, and then and word gets.
Directory, and then came out of the directory, left his footprints because he wasn't very good at covering his tracks. Somebody else comes in, deletes a bunch of stuff, covers their tracks, so the only person they have to follow is him.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's
the old walking in the snow backwards in somebody else's footprints.
which we do all the time.
All the time.
I do.
But no, that's true. They it sounds like they're pretty much wide open. You bet there'd be other people in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just...
Hey, you know, these guys have got a reputation for bad.
Hacked into, where's the number? You know, all these...
Like Matt.
Machines, right?
Yeah. Well, he was able to scan 65,000 machines with that Perl script to find the ones that he could access.
Phase it out. Whoever's left,
left
will while they retire.
It's so weird to me, the whole like dynamic of like being sophisticated enough to write a Perl script that like does this.
So that's a great.
Not like, or you like just put a little like go.
It's totally and again, I'm not casting aspersions on him, but I think that part of his issue is that he was not in his state of mind was not very stable at the time or clear to think, well, if I get in there, will somebody find out?
Well, but like Tor networks have
this group always